Thank you, Lauren and Matt, for taking time to talk to us here at Turning Point Academy on the importance of parents in education. So can you tell us a little bit about your podcast and why you started it?
Our podcast has our two boys on it. They're 11 and 13, and we decided to do it together as a family. We have guests of all types on, and we're really just looking to learn from people and unpack some of the crazy things that are happening in the world, and we can do it together. So it's a bit of a learning experience and opportunity to build skills and build experience, building a business and a brand and all of that. And so we kind of got interested in doing it because the kids were interested in building an online brand and being influencers. And I, at the same time, was looking at all the weird things happening in our culture. And so we thought, well, what better way to explore this than to do it together? And so we started our podcast called Programming Lions, and we did that about a year ago, and we're 64 episodes in and having a good time.
I honestly think we started it because we can teach our kids some things they're not learning in school. So the entrepreneurial spirit, productive habits, just basic things that maybe aren't always covered in the classroom.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So what do you think a parent's role is in educating their children?
Oh my gosh. Life?
Well,
everything.
I think a parent has more than a role. I think they have a duty to teach their children and to guide them and make sure that they have a value system, structure, and discipline around everything they're doing. And I think a lot of parents have just mailed it in on parenting. And so that's leaving children to figure it out themselves or to find their crowd in different areas, maybe an organization, maybe it's a group that doesn't have the best ideas or the best grounding. And so I think parents really need to be present in their kids' lives and make sure that they're active and spending as much time with their kids as possible, just to get that grounding and values and pushing them and letting them fail and learn and grow.
Yes, too many people are, I would say, overprotective. Granted, we have a podcast and it's social media, but in that aspect, I feel we're doing it as a family. So we're seeing hate, we're seeing love as a group, and we can cover all of those together and help the boys grow. And we're growing as well.
Yeah.
So you guys are clearly modeling curiosity and asking good questions to your children. How would you encourage parents to do that as well?
I would say one thing with our podcast, Matt and I would always have happy hour at night, and we would get into these conversations, and eventually our boys kept coming in and sitting and talking with us, really deep topics that you think only adults should talk about this. So that was kind of an open door of, maybe we should ask kids because they're untainted. They don't have a mind that's been, what would you say, converted yet.
Yeah.
They have a unique...
Tainted or indoctrinated by...
They have a unique perspective that adults overlook. So we really wanted to dive into that. And the critical thinking, our boys, they actually have an off-site coach once a week, Will Rouge, who does critical thinking skills with our boys, because we can give them a perspective, but we also want them to hear other people's, because a lot of talk now is disagreeing, and you can disagree, but it can be a comfortable conversation, not hate.
Yeah, and there's a lot of toxicity out there.
Yes.
So they work with somebody besides us to get a different perspective on how to think and break down complex topics. But yeah, our kids were just naturally curious about some of the things we would talk about over happy hour, which was like holy time for us in our house. We just enjoyed that time because it was a great time for us to bond. And when they showed curiosity, we thought, wow, this is interesting. And then you recognize how kids have this almost like instinctual morality about them. If you talk to children about, we could go into abortion or other like complex topics, but let's just say something as simple as, hey, if you take out a loan, who should pay it back? And the kid will be like, what are you even talking about? Like, I should pay it back. I took out the loan. Well, no, but don't you think that the world owes you something? And so kids know at an early age what's right and wrong, what's common sense. And so we started like observing this and thinking, wow, maybe we can take this out a little bit more broadly to more folks and share that like kids are smart. They get this stuff and catch them before they get indoctrinated with victim ideology and other destructive ideas. So that's sort of what spurred us. And we break down issues, as Lauren said. We'll try to take an issue and have the boys do some research on what are the benefits and drawbacks of this thing? Who benefits from it? Who doesn't? And then based on that, how do we align? Where do we go? What's our decision? What's our opinion? So that way we can have informed opinions.
Absolutely. And what advice do you have for parents as they're trying to raise strong, courageous patriots?
I would say be involved. A lot of people hand over an iPad and consider that time with their kids. And it's unfortunate. I get it, because then you have free time. But I really think your kids, you have a limited amount of years. And I think we have really realized this. And we're like, okay, we have maybe 5-6 more years with our oldest at home, and we need to spend every minute with him before he's out in the real world, hearing other opinions, and we're going to guide him and be his backbone.
Yeah, it happens really fast. And so the more we can do and take time and spend with them and teach them things they don't learn in school, we can build entrepreneurial spirit and good values in them. Those are the things that are going to stick with them into their future, their jobs, their relationships. And so it's just so important. I think parents just really have to set aside the time to take that as a major priority in their lives.
Last question here for you. We have an educator summit. We do it every year. This next one is going to be in July in Florida, and the topic is Make Education Great Again, returning back to our purpose. In your opinion, how do you make education great again?
Well, I think you remove destructive ideologies from it, first of all. So I think you remove Marxist influences from our education and indoctrination systems. So things like CRT, things like DEI out of our education systems. And I think you get back to the basics. Also, I think you've got to realize that maybe the way that we have kids learning today, like factory workers sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day, isn't the best. And you've got to use some of their natural instincts and abilities to let them learn. Some kids want to learn different things at different paces. And so I'd like to see them tackle some of that, let kids engage in more of their own natural curiosity, because not everybody has the same passions. And I think you need some basic underlying principles. I love the idea of make education great again, because it's really been on a downward trend ever since really Carter and the Department of Education started. Our scores have gotten worse and worse every single year, and it's saddening. And you've seen this now great exodus of people from the public school systems because they're not getting what they want. Kids go, and it's like I said, like an assembly line, and they're not getting better. So parents are taking their kids to homeschooling. The trend on homeschooling is like a hockey stick. And so I think that's a real problem, and it needs to get revitalized. And I think if we can build better communities with better options, then everybody's going to be better off.
I don't think education is bad. When you say make education great again, I think it is good. It can just be taught maybe a little more conservatively, or
Well, I think when you remove values like faith, family, and freedom out of the education system, well,
you can get steered in a different direction.
Yeah, and then your new faith is in something like LGBT, which is exploding in the youth and in schools. And so I think people look for an outlet of something that they can belong to, and so I would love to see some of those themes coming back into education. Those are really the founding principles of the country, and so why wouldn't they be part of our education system?
Yeah, that's something we focus a lot on here at Turning Point Academy. We want to restore virtue back to education and teach kids what is true, good, and beautiful, and give them those critical thinking skills. So thank you so much for being an example of what parents can do to encourage their children to be curious and ask the important questions.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for having us.